Esmeralda Tovar-Mora is a Daca recipient who has utilized her platform as a community activist to advocate and speak to state representatives, Congress, the president, and the nation about immigrant rights. She has urged them to pass the Dream and Promise Act to create a pathway to citizenship for Daca recipients, farm workers, and TPS holders, and fix our broken immigration system through reform. She is a case manager at a mental health center, a medication aide in a dementia Alzheimer unit, secretary-treasurer of Hutch in Harmony, a member of her local NAACP, a member of the Multicultural Diversity Committee at her local hospital, a board member of the Hutchinson Community Foundation, a mother and wife. Her most recent projects and advocacy work include meeting with President Biden to advocate for herself, farm workers, and TPS holders for a pathway to citizenship, Save the Dream campaign with Hutch in Harmony, raising money to cover renewal or initial applications for Daca. They have raised over $5,000 and sent out checks to 10 dreamers and future dreamers throughout the U.S. Proceeds come from local businesses, private donations, and GoFundMe donations. She was present and walked alongside Democratic members when the Dream and Promise Act was walked over to the Senate for the Home is Here rally in Washington's D.C.'s Senate presser. She works with the Forward.us to promote immigration and criminal justice reform. She's worked with the National Immigration Forum on immigration advocacy work. She was a guest on Jimmy Kimmel Live. She had a feature on Cosmopolitan magazine for her work as a medication aide in a dementia Alzheimer unit as a Daca recipient, and was story number 126 that Senator Dick Durbin brought to the Senate floor to push for the Dream Promise Act. Please welcome Esmeralda Tovar-Mora.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for having me. And thank you, Tommy, for asking me to talk today. I kind of just wanted to tell you guys a little bit about my story and kind of everything that led up to my meeting with President Biden to push for immigration reform. So I was born in Mexico City in 1996. My father decided that he wanted to give me and my family a better life. And so he actually came to America when I was still pretty young. And we were separated for about 16 months. And then he called for my mother and myself to meet up with him in Kansas after he was already working here and saved up money after doing some work in California and New York, which was supposed to be our final destination. We ended up staying here with my uncle and my cousins, and we never left. Kansas was supposed to be our pit stop in 98, and we never left. And so we ended up making Hutchinson, Kansas our home for the next 23 years. We lived with my aunt and uncle and 3 cousins for about a year in a rental home that was fit for a single family. My father had established a stable job at the meat processing center here, and they were able to buy their own home, making payments through the course of 5 years. By the time I was 4, I still only knew Spanish, and my father had decided to record himself on those little cassettes that you could record yourself on. And right before I went to bed, I would listen to them before I started going to school. I remember going to school asking for the Jello marker instead of the yellow marker because of my dad's accent. And so I took a couple IEP classes, and then my English obviously progressed and got a lot better. I still have those tapes with me, and it's something really special to say that the person that taught me English is not an American citizen. My father, his broken English, he was able to teach me the colors of the rainbow, the numbers, and a couple of words here and there. I was enrolled in St. Teresa's Catholic grade school, and he did the best to teach me basics. And my mother was also learning alongside me as I went to school. And then after that, I continued my Catholic education. Those schools, I can tell you that my grade school was my favorite, and it set the foundation for my Catholic beliefs as well as my parents. And by fourth grade, I ended up being the Reno County Spelling Bee runner-up. And I was obsessed with science, and I started learning things here and there. I took a lot of math and science courses, and I was just really excited to grow up. I didn't think anything of it with, me being able to speak two languages. I just thought that it was beautiful that I had that culture, my parents' culture, my culture, and I was able to just use it at school. We celebrated, obviously, all of the American holidays and then all of the holidays in Mexico. And I just thought that it was beautiful. A lot of my classmates, fast forwarding to Trinity, I was in junior high and everybody was talking about their driver's permits and how they were excited going into freshman year that they would be driving. And they asked me if I was excited, if I was ready. And I was like, of course. I didn't think anything of it. I didn't know that I had a different status than they did. And I remember going home after I was super excited, after talking with my classmates about my work, not my work, but my learner's permit. And that's when they finally told me that I didn't have status, that I wouldn't be able to get my driver's license or driver's permit because I didn't have any status. And that's when they ended up breaking everything down, how every little thing that I needed for school, whether it was a school physical or going to the ER, anything like that, it was all out of pocket. I didn't know that. I didn't know that they didn't have insurance. I didn't know that I didn't have insurance. And so for 18 years, I went without insurance. And any doctor's visit, it was always full price. I had no idea. And so it was a bit of a shock to me. I always knew, obviously, that my culture was a big part of my life, but I never knew that it would be a reason for me not to be able to move forward with anything that my classmates were able to do. And so it was really frustrating because I thought that I was American. I felt American in every way. Obviously, pledging allegiance to the American flag at school every single morning. It was just something that you did. And so I didn't know what to feel. And then in 2012, when President Obama announced Daca, I had hope, because before I didn't really think, got dark really quickly, sorry. I didn't really think that there was a future for me. I thought that I was just going to finish high school and that would be it, that I wouldn't have a future, and that any future that I could envision myself doing wouldn't ever amount to something that I thought that I was able and capable to do. And so then in 2012, DACA became a thing. And just a little background on DACA. DACA it stands for Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. It was a response by Obama as the DREAM Act that was introduced back in 2001 failed to pass both House and the Senate. And so he initiated that immigration policy, and it provided a 2-year deferment from deportation actions and provided the eligibility for a work permit for those that were the guidelines that were able to qualify under such guidelines. Some of those requirements to be part of that program include entering the U.S. before your 16th birthday. You were under the age of 31 as of June 15, 2012, having continuous residence in the United States since June 15, 2007, being physically present in the United States on June 15, 2012, and at the time of request for consideration under the program, having had no lawful status on June 15, 2012, You also needed to currently be in school, graduated, or obtained a certificate of completion from high school, or obtained a GED, having been honorably discharged, a veteran of the Coast Guard or Armed Forces of the United States, and you cannot have been convicted of a felony, significant misdemeanor, or 3 or more misdemeanors, and do not otherwise pose a threat to the United States, to national security or public safety. The Migration Policy Institute estimated that there are about 1.9 million potential participants in the United States, and USIS accepted about 840,000 as of June 2016. So the primary country of origin for most DACA recipients is Mexico. And obviously the future of DACA, because it was never meant to be a permanent solution, it was just supposed to be kind of a buffer to kind of get Congress to act and decide on the Dream and Promise Act. It was obviously under scrutiny. It was also under a lot of unknowns. So a lot of the people that were granted DACA, like myself, after I did initially send out my application and I qualified under all of those guidelines, I also needed to send in all of the evidence. And all of that evidence could only really be provided by my church, my school, and my community. And so we were able to send all of that in, get the application forms, get the passport pictures, and a lot of hope packed into one mailing package to the USIS office. And thankfully, I was granted DACA, and this year will be my 4th renewal. It will expire in a little over 6 months, and it's, your lawyers tell you to try to send it at about the 180-day mark before it expires, just in case you don't, if you don't get it in time, they want to make sure that they have proper time to do it, so that you can receive your work permit and DACA all at once, and that way you're not completely undocumented. And so a couple of the things that DACA allows me to do is obviously work, because I was granted a social by the government. It allows me to pay my car insurance. It allows me to open up a bank account, drive with my driver's license, open up any accounts that you can open up, or anything that requires your state ID or driver's license. DACA allowed me to do that. It allowed me to get married to my husband, who I met 2 years after I was granted DACA. I met him back in 2012 when it was established, but I didn't tell him about my status until 2 years later, because I was afraid. It wasn't something that I was very open with about, to anybody really. Like, hey, by the way, I don't have papers. The only thing keeping me here is this plastic card. It's beautiful. It's actually really pretty. But it was the only thing that was keeping me here. It was my lifeline to this country, to my only home that I've ever really known, because I don't remember anything about Mexico. But anyways, 2 years later, I was finally able to tell him, and that was when he told me that he was going to be joining the Kansas National Guard. And we both talked a lot about our dreams and what we saw, our future. And we still, my status was never anything that he cared about. He said that we would, obviously work through whatever. We didn't know what whatever was going to be until today, being at risk of deportation because the Dream and Promise Act still hasn't been passed. And DACA is still under fire. Right now, there is a Hanan DACA case that will be decided if it is still good that the DACA program is a thing, or if there is substantial evidence that it can just be completely taken away, rescinded. And so that's essentially what that is. In 2017, the program was rescinded for new applicants. And so since I was already someone who had obtained DACA back a few years back, I was still okay. But then in 2019, it was stated by a court case that I needed to renew it every year. And thankfully, that has been cut. It's gone back, thanks to Supreme Court decisions. It's gone back to every 2 years. But it just keeps going back and forth. Like, if it's confusing, believe me, it's really difficult living it. And so, per DACA requirements, participants have to self-identify as being unlawful residents, and that's something that the government knows. So all of my information, it's, the government has everything. And so unfortunately, fast forward to 2018, my husband, he was my fiance at the time, he was getting ready to go overseas. And in that time was when the DACA program was really, the potentiality of it being rescinded or just completely scratched was very, very possible. And so he was overseas worrying about whether or not I was going to be here when he came back. My family and myself, we had to have a deportation plan in place. And the sad thing is that the final plan was for my daughter and myself to go back to Mexico and be with family while my husband finished out his 6 years in the military, and then he would come. And so it was a whole thing. It just really depended on scenarios and this and that. But anyways, I don't know if you guys need me to talk a little bit more about that, but I just wanted to do a little background on that. And I also just wanted to say that ever since then, my advocacy work really started in 2017. I wrote a column for the Daily Caller just based on Kansas values and how it's intermixed with almost 5,000 Dreamers that lived in the state of Kansas. And I also started working with Forward.us, which is Mark Zuckerberg's immigration advocacy program. In 2017, I did a home video with them, just kind of like a family video to showcase that the people who have DACA have family members, they have kids, they have partners, they have people that love them, they have jobs, and they have schools that they like going to, right? And so ever since then, I continued working with Forward.us. I did undocumented student workshops. One was with Adalia Schumann. She's from Topeka. And then after that, I continued working with the National Immigration Forum for immigration advocacy work. And so that press conference that I held at the National Press Club, I was able to record a podcast with Ali Naruni and talked to Congressman at the time, Roger Marshall. And that was in June of 2018. So that was during the zero tolerance policy, where family, children and their parents were being separated. And so after that same summer, I did the Love Thy Neighbor event with Hutch and Harmony before I joined Hutch and Harmony. And we were just sending out postcards to President Trump, written by children about, keeping children together with their parents and how vital it was for that. And then I remember being invited to Jimmy Kimmel in 2018 before my husband went overseas. He was able to be there with me and my daughter. And we were guests. It was supposed to be a kind of a Q&A back and forth. And it obviously was not that. If anybody has seen the clip, it's basically 6 minutes of just one side saying things and my family and I taking it. So that was really difficult. It was difficult for me because it was really the biggest spotlight of my life being showcased, my story being known. And I think that's in the back of my mind. It's always been kind of scary because obviously I'm worried about my parents. I'm worried about their safety, my family, and my husband's parents as well. But I just remember thinking how much I've held back from speaking out because I was afraid of being deported. And there were things that my parents have endured, things that I have endured, that we decided not to say anything because that was always the fear, unfortunately. And one day I just said, you know what, I'm done. I am done. I'm going to speak out against it because all I'm trying to do is work. All I want to do is work, go to school, be a good mother, be a good wife, be a good daughter, be a good parishioner. I just want to be able to help people. And that's something that I really learned in high school by joining Key Club. Key Club, the first time with Key Club, we went and we played bingo at a nursing home. And I remember how much fun it was just being there with so many people and so many of the elderly women that were playing. It was so much fun. They kept yelling and saying, "Yay, I won." And it was like a cute little necklace and they were just super excited. And I said, I really want to work with the elderly. Geriatric care is just something that I'm really passionate about. That's why I decided to go into nursing school. Currently, I'm actually studying at WSU with a general studies bachelor's degree, focusing on criminal justice, sociology, women/ethnic and religion studies. And I'm almost done with my BSN. The only reason that I had to stop that from going full-time to part-time to having to wait a little bit was because 2 years ago, when my Daca was getting ready to expire, the 180 mark, I decided to send it in, like my lawyer suggested, and it didn't come in time. 6 months before, it didn't come in time. And so I lived for almost 3 weeks completely undocumented. That was very difficult. And because I was driving to Salina every day at 5 a.m. in the morning, I wasn't able to do that because my driver's license expires the same day as my work permit, which is my plastic card that I get. Instead of having to go to the DMV every once, a couple years, I have to do it every 2 years. And it's a completely different process because it expires at the same time. I couldn't do that. I couldn't even renew my tags. I don't even remember what it was at my bank that they needed my identification for. And I couldn't even do that because my driver's license had expired. So I had to take a break from school because of that. And thankfully, my workplace knew about, the current situation. And so I got the extension from them and I was able to come back as soon as it came in the mail. So just all those little things just kept coming up. And so I decided I needed to take some time to really focus on a permanent solution so that I could do all of these things without worry. And I think that's also a main reason why I'm just fighting so hard to continue promoting immigration reform, because the system in and of itself is broken. I cannot tell you how long it takes for the right way to happen. If I was to get petitioned by my husband, which is a possibility for me, not for everybody, because everybody's situation is different with Daca. My husband could petition for me, and what happens is his petition goes in for permanent residency, and that permanent residency is either accepted or denied. In order to do that, I would need to get advanced parole, which is a whole nother application. And advanced parole, what that would do is it would grant me a legal entry. I would get to go back to my home country for a certain amount of time. I have a period of time that they give me. And the problem with advanced parole is that you can get there if you are granted it, but there's no guarantee that you will come back. It really just depends on the Border Patrol agent, whether or not you get to come back. And so it's just kind of a hit or miss. So it's kind of scary to do that in and of itself. So advanced parole, and then petition for permanent residency, whether that's granted, then you have to wait 3 to 5 years before you can apply for citizenship. And so all of this is filled with ifs. and there is no permanent solution for dreamers, there's no pathway. And so if my husband was to do that, then that's a whole nother thing. They would get him in a room and ask him a series of questions, obviously for legal purposes. But I just know how strenuous this process is for myself. I would hate to bring him into this even more, even though he'd be happy to. We would still have to wait another year. According to our attorney, according to our lawyer, he says between 2 to 3 years after marriage, if there is nothing, pushed through Congress for the Dream and Promise Act, then he suggested that we have my husband petition for me, kind of like as a last resort. But in the meantime, I would have to get advanced parole, and I can talk a little bit more about that if you guys need to. But I also want to take some time for questions because I feel like I've been talking a lot.
Well, tell us how you got invited by the president.
Oh, yes. That's exactly what this was for, wasn't it?
You laid a good groundwork. We get the feel for it now. Tell us about the president.
Whew. So that is a whole nother thing. So obviously I've been working with Forward.us, and they are the ones who would always reach out to me if I wanted to do a story, if I wanted to do an interview, and they were the ones who were reached out to by Jimmy Kimmel's people. And so anyways, all of these things, all of the advocacy work that I've been doing since 2017, I don't know, I guess he noticed, and he invited me to the White House after all of this time. And Forward.us had reached out to me, and they said that a White House correspondent wanted to give me a call. And I was like, okay, that's kind of cool. They gave me a call and they asked me if I wanted to speak with President Biden. And I said, sure. I thought it was going to be like a Zoom call because Dr. Jill Biden actually had a dreamer on a Zoom call in one of her stories that she had. And that's what I thought it was. And then the next day, they started sending me travel information. And so I said, okay, hold on. You're talking about actually meeting with the president. And they said, yes, like this will be in the Oval Office. And I said, oh my goodness, I wasn't ready. All of this was finalized the Wednesday before we met with him on Friday of that week, that same week. Yeah, it was really, really quick. And the reason for it was, to continue pushing for the Dream and Promise Act, as well as the Farm Workforce Modernization Act, which would allow farm workers who were working during the pandemic to, sustain our economy, as well as frontline workers, essential workers, to have a pathway to citizenship after everything that we've been through, obviously in 2020. Quick sidetrack with that. At my nursing home that I work at, during COVID, which is still prevalent right now, I lost about half of my residents.
Oh.
Yeah, I lost about half of them. And I remember speaking with President Biden when I finally got to Washington, D.C., and those doors opened up and he opened the doors up to the Oval Office. I was able to talk to him about family. And because my grandparents are not here, I seriously adopted all of them as my grandparents. And to see them going when it was only maybe one resident every 6 months, maybe, it started being a monthly thing, and then it started being like a weekly thing. So that was hard. And so I was able to talk to him about how while my residents were dying, my parents, both my parents and my sister and my husband got COVID last year.
Wow.
And this was all during Thanksgiving. And so it was the first Thanksgiving without my parents in my 20, almost 5 years. Every single year I would stuff the turkey with my mom, but she did the turkey, right? I had to do my own turkey this past year. It turned out okay. It wasn't, I followed a Gordon Ramsay recipe because that's what my husband and I love watching, Master Chef. But yeah, it was really difficult because my husband had just gotten out of his isolation period, and it was just my daughter and myself, and we were both still safe. I was getting tested weekly. She got tested once in that time period. And so anyways, I got to tell him about that. I got to tell him about how difficult it was going through all of this, and at the same time thinking I was going to get deported. Thinking that the program that was rescinded for new applicants would be rescinded for myself. And then I wouldn't be able to do anything that I have been doing that led me to go meet with him. And so I was able to talk to him about that. And my husband, he actually bought me, those like silicone rings that you can wear when you can't wear your wedding ring for whatever reason. I had two. So this is one. I don't know if you guys can see it. This is one of them, the bottom one. There was a black one on top, and it had beads. It was 20 beads around it. And towards the end of one of my residents' lives, she was very, very ill with COVID. And obviously I was all suited up and everything like that. But she really enjoyed praying the rosary. And that was something that we shared. And so sometimes I would leave her with the rosary that she had, but then she got really weak towards the end and she wasn't able to hold it. So I actually gave her my little beaded ring that I would pray the rosary on when I could. And she used it before she passed. And I actually gave that to President Biden when I met with him. Obviously it was cleaned and sanitized and everything like that. But he had it. I put it on his pinky finger. So that's the only one it would fit on. But it was a surreal experience. We were affirmed that we are a nation of immigrants. Speaking of family, obviously my immigrant family, my military family, my work family, my church family, my social justice advocate family. The most beautiful thing is that so many of those families overlap. And they all mean the world to me. And I will do anything that it takes to stay here with all of them. Obviously, I'm grateful for all of the opportunities that Daca has given me. But if the last 4 years taught me anything, it's just how tenuous those protections can be. All I care about is about being safe, not only from deportation, but safe to continue living and working and being a member of my community. And the only way that my family can stay together is through a pathway to citizenship. So I'm just grateful I was able to sit down with him. Quite frankly, I was worried that it was going to be one of those meetings where you talk and the other person listens and says, "Hey, thanks for coming. Thank you for your time." He had his own stories. He affirmed that we are a nation of immigrants. We got cookies. He thinks he made us comfortable. And hey, those cookies had the presidential seal on them, okay?
That's funny.
Yeah.
Did you save them?
My daughter had all.
She ate them? Oh, Rose. Oh.
They were so good. Like I had a tiny little smidget and yeah, I felt like I was talking to someone that just, we were in my living room and we were just talking about these things that were going on. That's what it felt like. Obviously it's still something that can very easily, DACA can still be rescinded. But it's just nice to know that if it were to pass, it would get signed quickly. So
great. Are there any questions out there for Esmeralda? Nobody?
Oh, I have a question.
Sure thing.
Okay.
Am I unmuted? I think.
Yes, you're good. Go with
Okay.
it.
That the gesture of you giving President Biden the ring, that was not pre-planned, was it? Was that a spur of the moment thing?
It was such a spur of the moment. We were all sitting down. There were 6 of us, assistant school principal, a special ed teacher, a medical student, farm worker's daughter, and social justice advocate with forward.us, and myself. The only person that had a pre-planned gift was the special ed teacher. The students that she works with, they made him a little t-shirt from Texas. And she passed by with the checkpoint and everything, and she held it out for him, and he it fit him. It fit him. And so we all just kind of started talking about the different things. And when he finally let us stand up, or not finally let us, but when we were able to stand up, he let us sit in his Oval Office chair, and he had his shades on and everything. And as we went up to speak with him personally, we were just all giving him something. And we just said, this is something that I need you to remember me by, because this is so important. It's so important that I can continue doing this. And so I just want you to have this, because it means that much to me. So I can only imagine, with you having it, what it would mean. So.
That's awesome. What a great story.
Esmeralda, you said just you got to go in, right? In your family.
Oh,
right?
Yes. My husband and my daughter, they did get to walk me up to the gate. But when I finally met the president, I had more clearance than my husband at one point.
That's kind of ironic, isn't it?
It's kind of hilarious, because he said, man.
That's funny. Any other questions, anyone out there? Going once.
Unmute yourself. Candace, unmute yourself.
Yeah, I wanted to add.
Oh, hang on, Robert. Candace, are you going to talk?
Can you hear me now?
Kind of.
I guess I'm not talking.
You are.
I don't know what the problem is. It's let Robert talk.
Okay. Robert, take it away.
Esmeralda, did you get a chance to meet any of the Kansas representatives or Congress people while you were there?
I did not. No, I didn't. But in 2018, when I went with the National Immigration Forum, I did get to personally sit down with Roger Marshall and just different senators and representatives there at the Capitol, just to kind of talk. This was during the zero tolerance policy. And so it was just to, remind them that families should stay together. And he did sit down and he listened, and he talked to me about his Kansas values, and he talked to me about what he felt was important to him. And obviously we don't see eye to eye on a lot of things, but the respect was always there. That was, I think for a lot of people, for either side, whatever side it is, or if there isn't a side, just treating people with respect and dignity, it goes a long way. You can disagree, and obviously a lot of the things that are disagreed on most recently do affect so many. But if we just continue going up and up and up and up and up, that nothing is going to happen. We're never going to move forward. And so being able to speak and disagree respectfully, especially when you have the opportunity to talk to someone that has a higher office, it's important.
Thank you.
Good question. Thank you. Candace, can you type it in the chat, your question?
Oh, let me see. You're taxing my skills here.
Bottom right, where it says more, or there are 3 little dots.
It's not. Oh, there we go. It's not working.
And anybody else?
Say that again, Sandra.
I could hear her. Can't anybody else?
She was chopping up all over the place for me. I couldn't hardly hear anything.
I could hear parts of it. Candace, try turning off your video. Then sometimes the audio is more clear.
That would be at the bottom left.
This is why we need rural broadband expansion.
There we go. Okay. Did you see that, Esmeralda?
Yes, it's only help with legal fees. So personally, myself, what I do is I tackle on a couple extra hours at work, especially this month because it's when I will be renewing. But with Hutch and Harmony, we actually have the Save the Dream campaign. And instead of the over 5,000, someone generously from a completely different state donated $1,800. And we have 14 people in line at the moment. And so that's almost 4 of them that are going to be able to send in their initial application or their renewal. I am actually letting them know after this meeting that their DACA is fully funded through Hutch and Harmony. And so if you need more information for that, I can look for the link. I know I have it on here somewhere. But yeah, we decided that this would be our campaign for this year. And it'll be to cover just the initial application fee or renewal fee, which is the same amount, which is $495 every 2 years. That doesn't include your lawyer fees. It doesn't include your passport pictures or your passport renewal that you have to go to the consulate in Kansas City to renew if it has expired, or road and travel costs, all that good stuff. It can very easily amount to about $1,500 every 2 years. It really depends where you go and what your situation is. But the initial and renewal fee will always be $495, and it has to be made out to uses specifically. I know that this didn't happen to me, but it has happened to others where they send in their stuff and it gets lost, and unfortunately they have to send it again with a whole nother money order with another $495. And so I know how difficult with COVID and everything, how a lot of people have been struggling. And so I don't ever want this to be a hindrance to why they don't renew or apply for the first time, since it was announced that it was now fully back. DACA is fully restored at the moment, pending a Han and DACA case. And so in the meantime, we want to get as many people as possible through that user store to be able to renew and at least apply to be safe for 2 years. So that's what we decided to do this year.
Wow. Okay, very good. Anybody else have any questions?
I have a follow-up question to that. Is there any sort of a scholarship program where people like us can give money to help people file for DACA?
Yes. So you can do it either, through the campaign that we're doing. It's through the end of this year, through December. You can do it with Hutch and Harmony. You can do it with the National Immigration Forum. You can also do it through United We Dream, which people have to file an application with them. And then as they receive money, just kind of like we're doing it, they'll be able to send them out to people. And so I can go ahead and get that link really quickly for all three. And I know there's probably more in different states. Those are just the ones that do it that I know throughout the United States. So I want to make sure that you guys have that information as well. But yes.
And could your donations be targeted to Kansans?
So at this time, we do have 5 people from Kansas. If you were to market that you wanted it specifically for that, I don't see why not. If that's something that you would like, I can definitely talk to the girls. I understand why that would be important as well.
Thank you.
Yeah. I'm sending it right now. Maybe.
Gotta love technology.
I know.
Okay, there's more chat one. There it is. It's in the chat, everyone. Everybody see it?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, because I'm not chatting.
Okay. We'll figure out
So you'll have
somehow to
to-
get that.
Yeah. Well, you could just send out an email to our group,
We could do that.
couldn't you?
Mhm.
With the
Esmeralda
information.
could, or she could just send me an email with it and I can forward it then.
Yeah.
If that would be okay, Esmeralda.
Yes, of course.
That would work. Thank you.
Fabulous.
And thank you, Esmeralda. And what's your next plan? Just doing what you're doing, right?
I hope to enjoy my husband's presence this month. He's been gone for a month on mission with the military. Thankfully, it was in the United States, but he gets back home today around 8, I believe. So.
Oh.
All right. We don't want to detain you too long.
Oh, you are good. You are good. He knows I talk a lot, so y'all can just tell me when to stop.
You're funny.
I'm serious. I could go into depth about how it was introduced in 2001 and like the whole, I think I have it memorized. I won't bore you with the details though.
Okay. Well, are there any other questions? This is your last going twice, going 3 times.
Ask away.
I hate to bogart the question part, but I have another question.
Of course.
Okay.
Of course.
I am really curious about that phrase. Was it advanced parole? Was
Yes.
that? How does that term make you feel?
Oh, I know. I think with the word advanced parole, with the word alien, I'm just like, I don't think I'm green.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
I just think that the word illegal in and of itself, it's dehumanizing, right?
Yes.
And I would never want to do that to anybody. I don't care who you are. Like, you could be the worst person on this earth. It could be me. I would never say that to myself or anybody that I disagreed with, much less reference that to a group of people. But yeah, advanced parole is a whole, I don't even know how to explain it, because it would grant you legal entry if you don't have it, which obviously I do not. I'm so sorry. I actually got something in my eyeball. But anyways, so advanced parole, it'll gain you legal entry into the United States if you are able to make it back, depending on the Border Patrol agent. So it's not guaranteed, even if you have your paper that says, yes, you're granted this for, let's say, 1 month or 1 week or 3 days, in and out, whatever it might be. And you can utilize it sometimes for studying abroad. You can utilize it for medical stuff because you don't have insurance. You are able to go to the dentist and get some teeth pulled and then come right back the next day. Just maybe, but it has to be good enough as well, because now most recently they're not allowing as many medical reasons and giving you options in the state. Death of a family member is one of them. I remember I was wanting to do that when my uncle had passed away. But again, it's the money. The money, you have to have the money for it. The travel expenses. My daughter, it was at the same time that my husband was deployed. So it was just like a million things happening. And unfortunately, my mother was the only sibling out of 8 that was unable to attend her brother's funeral because she's the only one in her family that's in the United States. And she made that decision, 23 years ago with my father. And they've never looked back. And they did it for me. And I am just like, how am I supposed to ever repay that? I can't. I really can't, because they knew when they left that there was a possibility that they would never come back to their family. They knew that. And they still came. And that's why I'm able to do what I can do.
Wow. What an amazing story. I read your story in the Hutchinson News, and I was just enthralled with what all you're doing. I'm so proud of you. And I have to, my take on I'd never heard that term until they're already calling you a criminal, because of the use of the word parole. I mean, it's just bizarre to me, the terminology we use for immigration nowadays. So anything I can do to help your cause, I will.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It really does mean a lot, because I grew up, after I found out about my status, I grew up without friends that I thought were going to be there forever, just because of that status. And to have allies in this movement, in this push for citizenship, for a pathway, it means so much, because there was a point in time where, again, I thought that there was nothing for me after high school, so why should I even keep trying, right? And it was people like you that made me push forward. It was that hope that helped me with resiliency. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Well, Esmeralda, again, thank you so much for taking time out of your evening. And I can't imagine your husband being half an hour away from getting home and you being on the phone with us. But thank you.
It's okay.
And you're so calm.
I'm calm now.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, thank you. If you wish to stay on, you're welcome. If not, we'll do a little bit of business and call it a day.
Okay. Thank you, guys.
Okay. Thank you so much.